Okay. Hi, my name is Nancy Woodall. I'm the foster parent advocate in the Mid-Cumberland region and a foster parent for the Department of Children's Services for the last 35 years. I'm going to go through the Foster Parent Bill of Rights with you. The Foster Parent Bill of Rights became law it passed in May of 1997, and Governor Sundquist signed it into law in June of 1997. It happened because a group of foster parents went to a national conference, and we learned that a few other states, had lobbied for and gained a basic set of Bill of Rights. So we drafted a copy of the other 5 states that had already got this passed. We brought it back to Tennessee and drafted it to where we thought it would meet the needs of the foster parents in Tennessee. We then met with DCS and they put their spin on it, and we were able to collectively come together in an agreement of what we thought should work for the foster parents in Tennessee. Then we presented it to our legislators, and it passed in May of 97. Governor Sundquist signed it in June of 97. So today we're going to go over each of the 25 tenets of the Foster Parent Bill of Rights, as well as the Supreme Court Rule 40 that talks about the guardian ad litem's position and responsibility in advocating for children in foster care. Okay, so I've already gone there. And the reason that foster parents came together and wanted to talk to the board of TFACA, that's Tennessee Foster Adoptive Care Association, was because they felt like there was a huge lack of respect and a huge lack of communication between their caseworkers, between DCS and foster homes. They talked about the lack of sharing knowledge about the children that they're asked to bring into their home, and then the allegations that there was fear and therefore losing of foster parents. When I talk about this, like I said earlier, I've been a foster parent for 35 years, and when I talk about this, I talk about partnership. Partnership is a huge part of being a foster parent because, you know, when it boils down to it, DCS cannot do their job without us, and we can't do our job without them. So we must all embrace partnership. And when you're talking about partnership, there's no room for fear. You know, we should never be fearful of our partners. They are our partners. We work together for the best outcomes for the children in state custody. So we want to abolish any kind of fear or loss of foster homes because of a lack of respect or a lack of sharing knowledge, a lack of communication. That should not enter into the equation at all. So we're going to go through this tenant by tenant. Like I said, there's 25 tenants, and we're going to go through them briefly. And the first tenet for the Bill of Rights is listed under the category of respect. What I tell people all the time is if everybody just followed tenet 1, we wouldn't have a reason to have all the other tenets. Tenet 1 reads that foster parents will be treated with trust and dignity and respect, and a primary member of the team caring for children in foster care. So if foster parents are always treated with trust and dignity and respect, then we're going to have the best outcomes for the kids that are placed in our care. We are not just glorified babysitters. We're not paid babysitters. We are a member of the professional team. I also tell foster parents that you have to first see yourself as a professional member of the team and not just a babysitter before anybody else is going to see you as an important professional member of the team. You have to see yourself as that first, and then other people will follow suit. The next tenet that under the category of respect is tenet 3, and it's the respect for your family values and traditions. Tenet 3 says, and I'll read this to you, it says the foster parent shall be permitted to continue your own family values and routines. When I teach this to foster parents, I say, you know, we should be able to continue our family values and routines just as we did before foster children came into our home. We need to be respected and be able to make those judgment calls. If it is my family tradition and routines that we don't take any phone calls during the supper hour, well, you know, I don't want to mitigate that birth parents have a right to talk to their children. We just need to respect that from 6 to 7 is our family time. So call at 7:15 or 7:30. I still want to emphasize the importance of working with birth parents, but at the same time respect my family values and routines. If it's your family value and routine that you go to church on Wednesday nights, then you still do that, even with foster children in your home, so that you are the kings and queens of your castle, and you have the right to continue your family values and routines. Respect is also referenced in Tenet 10 of the Foster Parent Bill of Rights. Tenet 10 is the respect for the parent's ability to know which children they can best parent. For me, for instance, I know taking little people is not where my area of expertise is. I foster the teenagers. I feel like that's where I can best meet the needs of kids in foster care. That's teenagers. I probably wouldn't do it very good with a first grader or second grader. I did that one time. I went to a meeting and came home with 3 children that weren't with me when I went to the meeting, and they were all young school-age children. And this little girl, I got a note from the teacher about 4 or 5 days later, and said that I hadn't signed her agenda. I didn't even know what an agenda was. As in it says, that she's supposed to color the flowers. And I asked her, I said, can you read this and follow the directions? And she said, no, she didn't know how to read. Well, she did. But I didn't know that she knew because I don't do little people. I didn't even know what an agenda was. So it's we have the right to know which children we can best parent. Little people are not my forte. Give me teenagers any day. That's what I do. And respect is also referenced in 22, that respected parents know when they need a break. Now you have to remember that these were written back in 1996, 97. So some of the language is a little bit obsolete, but it all has basically the same meaning, although it might be just a little bit different. Tenet 22 reads that the foster parent shall permit that the department shall permit the foster parents a period of respite. Now, back when this was written, respite didn't mean what it means now, but let's go ahead and talk about that. Free from placement of foster children in the family home with a follow-up contact by the agency occurring of a minimum of every 2 months. The foster parent shall provide reasonable notice to be determined in the proclamation of rules to the Department for Respite. Well, back then, and I use myself as an example a lot when I teach this class, back then respite meant that I just needed a break from any foster children being in my home. Now respite means away for the weekend, or my grandmother's sick and I need to leave, and another foster parent, would step at the plate and watch my kids for me. Back then, when we wrote this, that's not what we were talking about. We were talking about, and like I said, I'm going to use myself. I had a very special needs child, and I also had a husband who had cancer, and he was on hospice care. I have a hard time saying no when the Department of Placement calls me, and I would take every one of them if I could. And I know that sometimes that is one of my weaknesses, is that I put too much on my own plate. So what happened when my husband went on hospice care, I called the department. I said, maybe you should just put me on hold for now because I'm going to say yes when I know I shouldn't. So just give me a break, and then when all this is over and when I'm back to doing what I do, then I'll let you know, and I'll start taking children again. That's what respite meant when we wrote this, was taking a break altogether. I didn't want the children that I already had to be moved. I didn't want to disrupt those placements, but I didn't want to say yes when I take those 2 a.m. phone calls when I know I would have. So that's what we meant when we wrote this back then, was that we know when we need a break and we can ask for that. Now, if you do that and your home is closed for a certain length of time, you have to go through PATH and training all over again if it's been a long time. But that's what respite meant then, that I know when I needed a break. Foster parent records is referenced in Tenet 24. I joke about this one all the time because foster parents have a right to see what's in their home records. They have not only to see it, but have a copy of it. I oftentimes joke and say that I'm going to have the foster parent make me a copy of all my records. And like I told you, I've been a foster parent 35 years, so that would be a few trees that they would have to cut down. But I do have a right to those. I said I'm going to do that on April Fool's Day someday, but I haven't done that yet because I know it would be an extreme amount of work. Foster parents have a right to know everything that's in their records except for 2 things. And the first thing is if there's been any allegations made about them. They can hear about the allegations, but they cannot hear the referent, the person who called those in. And the second thing that they will not have access to, and I'll explain to you why this one is too, is when you first become a foster parent and you have to give references, you don't have access to those reference letters. And I'll tell you why. Because we had, back then when we wrote these, we had a foster parent whose own birth children wrote really bad things on their references about their own parents, and that would have just really destroyed that family if we had shared those records with them. So for obvious reasons, they're not going to share your letters of reference and the way that people respond to those, or the person who's made any kind of referral about you. Information on the child and the child's family is referenced in Tenets 2, 5, 8, 9, and 15. Tenet 2, and I'll read these to you, is the role of the department and the child's family and foster care. Tenet 2 reads, the department shall provide the foster parents with a clear explanation and understanding of the role of the department and the role of the members of the child's birth family and the child's foster care. I tell foster parents all the time they're going to get this written documentation on two different documents. One would be on your PERM plan. It's going to tell what the expectation is for everybody on the case. The foster parents, it may not list you by name, but it's going to list you by title, by foster parent. It's going to list what the child has to do and what the family has to do and what the department has to do. So that clear written explanation is going to be on your PERM plan. It's also on your foster parent contract. On one side, it's the expectations of the foster parent and the roles, and the opposite side is the roles and expectations of the department. So it's on your placement contract and on your PERM plan. Tenet 5 is also referenced under information on the child, and it's about the child's health issues. It reads that prior to placement, now you're going to see the words prior to placement quite a bit, because that's what this is all about, you know, to make informed decisions that we are the best choice for this child while he's in foster care. So prior to placement of a child in foster care, the department shall inform the foster parents of issues relative to the child that may jeopardize the health or safety of the foster family or alter the manner in which foster care should be administered. Let me talk to you about that one a little bit. I like to use myself as an example because I've been around a long time. But let's talk about when probably my third or fourth child. I've had over 500 children, but my third or fourth child that I had in my home, my brother-in-law was the police chief in the town that I live in, and back then, this was before the Brian A. lawsuit settlement, and I had 13 kids. I did. I had 13 kids for 18 months because I take the teenagers, and not too many people take teenagers. Back then, I took teenage girls. And one Friday night when my sister and brother-in-law, who was police chief, asked if one of my girls could spend the night with them because they had become fond of this girl, I said, well, sure. I said, how many do you want? And, they just wanted her to. So she spent the night with them. Well, they did their usual stuff. They had supper and watched movies and stuff, and then they went to bed. Well, my brother-in-law, and this is a true story, folks, my brother-in-law had left the keys to all the cars on the key hook at the back door. He got up the next morning, my sister, and she was making pancakes, and my child, we call her Sweet Vicky. That's not her name, but we call her Sweet Vicky. She said, Aunt Brenda, where's Uncle Mike's car? It was not in the driveway. It was the unmarked police car. It was gone. So he goes down to the police department, and he calls me, and he asked me to come over there. And I went to the police department. Of course, we all know that Vicky has to know something about this. She's the one who discovered it missing, and it's, never been stolen before. Well, come to find out, we come up with this plan that we were going to tell her that we had found the car and that it had her fingerprints all over it. Of course, none of that was true, but she spilled her guts. She told the whole story. Yes, she had stolen the car. Yes, she had picked up several friends around town. Yes, they wrecked the car, and then they pushed it off into the lake. This is a true story, people. So she told the whole story. So I called her worker. This is on Saturday, remember, and I said, you're not going to believe what Sweet Vicky did. And I told her the story that she had stolen the unmarked police car. Please call that joyriding, by the way. It wasn't a joyful day for us, but they call it joyriding. So I called her worker, and I told her what she did. And the worker says to me, not again. And I said, excuse me? And she said, yeah, that's why she's had so many moves, so many placement changes. She keeps stealing people's car. And I said, don't you think you should have told me that? You know, I would have probably still taken her, but I would have known, and I would have told everybody that I do know to not leave keys laying around. You know, you can't tell me after something's done and say, not again. Inform me. Let me make the informed decision that I'm the best choice. Let me take precautions. And so that's where that all comes from. And that was the child's health issues that would jeopardize the health and safety. Any of those kids that she picked up could have got hurt really bad. And then when they pushed the car in the lake, that could have been really, really bad. So that you know, you have to tell me about these kind of things before, and even the tenant says prior to placement, tell me these things so I can make an informed decision that I'm the best choice, and so I can take precautions when I need to. Tenant 8 says it's the written plan for placement of a child. Tenant 8, let me read that for you, says the department shall provide a clear written explanation of the plan. Again, you're going to get that on the PERM plan and on your placement contract for the placement of a child in a foster parent's home. For emergency placements where time does not allow the prior preparation of such explanation, the department shall provide such explanation as it becomes available. That doesn't mean, now I understand that if a child comes in at 2 o'clock in the morning, they're not going to know enough to share with me, but as it becomes available to them, I'm the one that they need to tell. I need to know these things. It doesn't mean gather information and save it up till the next child and family team meeting. It means tell me on an ongoing basis as it becomes available, so I know that I'm prepared, that I'm ready to do this. Tenant 9 talks about the same thing, is that, again, prior to placement. Prior to placement, the department shall allow the foster parents to review written information concerning that child and allow the foster parents to assist in determining, again, it's just about communication. Respect me enough to communicate this stuff with me. Let me make an informed decision that I'm the right place, that I'm the right parent for this child and the issues that this child might bring to the table. Tenet 15, as it relates to information on the child and the child's family, says that written information about the child and the family background and health information. The department shall provide all information regarding the child and the child's family background and health history in a timely manner to the foster parents. A lot of times, my foster parents get a little confused about that because we are not privy to the birth parent's health information. We do have a right to know about the child as long as it's not something that's HIPAA protected, but we do have a right to know about the child, but we do not have the right to know anything about the birth family. The foster parents shall receive additional or necessary information that is relevant to the care of the child on an ongoing basis. There again, it's that line of communication needs to remain open at all times. Remember, they're our partners. I'm going to trust them to partner with me and share information that I need to know or that you need to know when you said yes to a child in your home. Case management is referenced in tenets 11, 13, 14, and 16. Tenet 11 reads, the department shall inform the foster parents of scheduled meetings and staffings concerning the foster child, and the foster parents shall be permitted to actively participate in case planning and decision-making process regarding the child in foster care. This may include individual service planning meetings, foster care review boards, individual educational planning meetings. Remember, we're part of the team. Tenet 1. Like I said, if Tenet 1 was followed, we wouldn't need to dissect it down to all these different tenets. But treat me as a professional member of the team. Share all this information with me. Treat me like I'm a member of the team caring for children and child welfare. Tenet 13, as it relates to case management, says the department shall solicit the input of foster parents concerning a plan of services for the child. This input shall be considered in the department's ongoing development of the plan. Well, I'm sure that you've guessed right now they don't have to solicit much from me. I'm pretty vocal and I don't mind talking. But in case you're not quite as vocal as I am, you're not as assertive as I am, the department needs to call you. Hey, this is what we're thinking. What are your thoughts? Share with us your ideas Because, you know, when it all boils down, we know these kids probably better than even sometimes their birth parents. We know when they struggle when they come back home from visits. We know when they get in fights on the playground or on the bus, or they get in trouble at school, or they struggle with homework. We know these kids. So our input in the case planning is vital. It's really important. But if you're not quite as vocal as I am, the department, the case managers, FSWs, they need to call you and seek your input, because your input is really, you need to know your value, and you are a valued people. What I tell people a lot when I teach past classes, nobody has the right to be a foster parent, but once you are a foster parent, you have legal rights. And that's what these are all about. Those of us that have been in the system for a long time, we fought for your rights. And I urge you to exercise your rights. Exercise your rights to be treated with trust and dignity and respect. Exercise your right to be given information and share your ideas and development of the plans. Tenet 14 is the department gives written consent and communication with professionals. Well, when you've been around as long as I have, I think all the schools know me, all the therapists and pediatricians and everybody in my area know me. So I don't need that written consent because I've been doing it for so long. But if you're a fairly new foster parent and your name's not out there like mine is, then you do have the right to get that written consent on DCS letterhead, or you could even just take your placement contract that gives professionals the right to share and exchange information with you about the children that are placed in your home. You have that legal right, and the department must give you that written consent to communicate with those professionals if you ask for it. Tenet 16, the department shall notify the foster parents of changes in the case plan. This one is really important to me anyway. It says the department shall provide timely written notification of changes in the case plan or termination of the placement and the reason for the change and termination of the plan. What that means is a long time ago, and I'm going by history here. A long time ago, for some reason, the department might decide that the child needs to move to another home. And when the child got home off the bus, their stuff was already in the back seat of the worker's car with no notice. There's no time for healthy closures. And finally, I know you've heard in past classes that every time a child has a placement change or any kind of change in their life, it sets them back developmentally 6 months. The light bulb finally went off and said, hey, we're hurting these kids by doing these sudden moves without notification. So now you have a right to a 14-day notice of removal and the reason why. And the whole purpose of that is just to give everybody time for a healthy closure instead of just abrupt another loss in their life, because that used to happen a lot. Or their stuff would be in black garbage bags on the front porch or already in the back seat of the car. They came home expecting to get their afternoon snack and play with their playmates or their friends, but no, they're getting moved for no reason. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. The department does not do that anymore, unless there's two reasons they can do that. If the court has ordered it, although the court doesn't have jurisdiction over placement, that the court can order when the child goes home. So, but you should already know about that before it happens. Or if there's been an allegation, if they feel like the child is at imminent risk for harm and danger, if there's an allegation been made about you that could possibly imminent risk for the child, then of course they're not going to leave the child there another minute if they think that child's at risk. So they can move the child suddenly and abruptly for imminent risk, or if the court has ordered that child go home on child home pass or exit custody to relative. But you should already know that before the time comes. That's 16. Let's go to court. Court is referenced in Tenets 12 and 17. And Tenet 12 says the foster parent shall be informed of all court decisions. That's what I was just saying. You should already know if the courts will order that. What I tell foster parents all the time is you would not send your own child to court without you. Why would you send your foster child? I know you can hear everything from the FSW or the guardian ad litem or the CASA worker, but if you can, hear it for yourself. But a lot of times the wordage gets lost in the shuffle. When it's repeated several times, it may not be the same as what was said. So if you can, I understand a lot of us and myself, I'm a single foster parent. A lot of times it's just impossible, but if you can, make every effort to be in court with your foster child, just like you would with your birth child if the roles were reversed. 10-17 is the foster parents shall be notified. Now, I don't know why, but a lot of times foster parents call me and say, well, they called me the night before. No, that's not good enough. You should be told at the same time that the birth family is told of when the next court hearing is, where it is, who the judge is, the docket number. It used to be a long time ago, you could go in court, in any court, and just hear everybody's business. Now, the judge or the bailiff can dictate who is in the courtroom. They're not quite so open anymore. You know, you have to have a case there, and you have to be a party to the case. But if the judge says you can't, you cannot. But nobody else can tell you, no, don't go. You don't need to be there. I'll tell you what happens. No, be there. Be there. Be an informed parent. Support is referenced in Tenant 6, 7, and 25. Tenant 6 is the department can be contacted for assistance 24 hours a day. Now, I know that different counties across the state do this differently. A lot of them have an on-call number that they share with foster parents. You can also use the child abuse hotline number and say, I'm a foster parent, I need for you to contact the on-call worker to call me. You can contact the sheriff's department, and they can contact DCS on-call person. So there's a lot of ways, but the bottom line is that you have the right to have a way to get assistance 24 hours a day. We all know that our crises don't happen between 8 and 4:30, or sorry, at nighttime or on the weekend. Therefore, you need to have a way to contact somebody for assistance anytime. Tenet 7 is really not applicable anymore, but back then it was, to get timely, adequate financial reimbursement. Now with the phone-in system or the login system, that doesn't happen. But I can tell you a long time ago, this was a real problem. You might go months and months and months without getting paid for the child that you have fed, that you've bought clothes for, and that you've had increased laundry, increased utilities. It might be months and months and months before you get paid for that. That doesn't happen anymore. Or if you're like me, and you had 13 kids, I had one child that got moved, went home, and I still kept getting her check every month, but it wasn't each check per child. It was one check for everybody. And I would call and I'd say, well, you're still paying me for her, and she's not in my home. And I'd call the next month, you're still paying me for her. So I just started putting it in an account because they just kept sending it. I knew it wasn't my money. I didn't want to spend it, so I just deducted that out, opened up a different account, and put that money in there. Well, about 12 months later, the money was still coming. And I got a call from my regional administrator and said, hey, Nancy, they're doing an audit, and they said that you've been paid, all this money. And I said, I know. And he said, well, do you have it? And I said, yes. And he said, can we have it back? And I said, well, sure. But guess what? I'm going to keep the interest because it gained interest. Every month I put that money in that account because I called them every month and said, you guys really need to stop this because I might be tempted to spend this money. But I didn't. I knew not to. I knew it wasn't my money. But that timely, adequate financial reimbursement is really not applicable anymore, but it was part of the law back then when we wrote this. Tenet 25, the Department provides foster parent handbook. Here's a copy of one. But I love this. I love the foster parent handbook. The foster parent handbook, I call it my foster care Bible. It tells you everything that you ever wanted to know. It tells you about clothing allowance. It tells you about allowance. It tells you about driver's license. It tells you about guardian ad litem, Supreme Court Rule 40. It tells you so much stuff that they don't cover in PAC. Your foster, and you can print it off the web. It's on the internet, but it's also, you can get a hard copy from DCS if you're lucky. Don't print enough of them. But it is a valuable, valuable document. I encourage you to get your hands on one way or another. After the child leaves care is referenced in Tenets 18, 20, and 21. Tenet 18 is the progress reports on the child leaving foster care. So usually when our kids leave foster care, they go on they call it a trial home visit. Usually it's 60 days or 90 days. that child is still in the legal custody of the department, but they're in the physical custody of their parent or relative, whoever they've exited custody with. We, as foster parents, we've invested in that child. That child's been in our home for a year, 2 years, 18 months, whatever. And you dreamed about him last night, and it was really heavy on your mind. You have the legal right to talk to DCS, talk to FSW, and say, you know, I dreamed about Bobby last night. How's he doing? And they have an obligation, according to the tenants of the Bill of Rights. Remember, these rights are not just a courtesy. It's not just policy, but they're law. They're covered under Tennessee Code Annotated. So this is law that they have to report back to you. Yeah, he's doing really good, and I think we're going to be able to exit custody on the 18th of next month. Or they say, well, we're kind of concerned. You know, Dad lost his job, so now they're getting evicted. They've been living in their car, and their car's going to be repossessed. So there's a chance that Bobby's going to come back into custody. They need to share that stuff with you. You have an investment in that child. That child is so heavy on your heart. So 10 and 18 says that you can ask, and they must answer you when you ask for reports on a child after they've left foster. It does not mean when they went from one foster home to another. Because there's usually a lot of he said, she said, and a lot of, you know, bad stuff. We don't want that. It's just progress reports when the child leaves foster care, when they go on that trial home visit. 10 and 20, the foster parents are your first choice when a child is free for adoption. That means when the child is in full guardianship. If that child has been in your home for 6 months, you are the first option for adoption once that child is free. Once that child is free. I know that the paperwork might say 9 months, but it's 6 months. You can petition for adoption if that child has been in your home for 6 months once they're free for adoption. 10 and 21 talks about foster parents are the first choice. And remember, our words here are options. You know, it doesn't mean it's a done deal, but you are the first option for adoption. The same thing when foster parents are first choice when the child re-enters custody. So say Bobby did have to come back in custody. Well, the policy and the Bill of Rights says that they need to look at your home first. If you still have, you can't move children around because you want Bobby back. We don't want to disrupt anybody. We don't want to hope for a disruption and leave that spot open either. The department needs all the placements that they can get. So they don't want you to sit there and hold that spot open, hoping that Bobby doesn't make it and then he comes back into custody. But you are the first choice if that child has to re-enter custody. And, you know, it could be that you're at your capacity. That, you know, it could be that Bobby doesn't want to come back. Maybe it wasn't a good match for him, even though it was good for you. But we want to put the children back in the most familiar environments when possible, when it's in that child's best interest. This familiar bedtime routines, and do you take your bath in the morning or at nighttime before bed, your school bus, your playmates, your church, all of that stuff is considered when that child has to re-enter custody. And it is in his best interest to go back to this place, and do they have an open spot in their home? Our advocacy tenet 23, this is really the most important tenet of all the Bill of Rights, and I want to talk about this one specifically, but let me read it to you here. Child abuse and neglect investigations involving the foster parents shall be investigated. Remember, the language is a little bit obsolete. Shall be investigated pursuant to the Department's Child Protective Service policy and procedures. It says a CPS case manager from another area. That's obsolete language. It's an SIU. It's a SIU investigator will be assigned the investigative responsibility. Removal of the child will be conducted pursuant to the Tennessee Code Annotated Departmental Policy. Remember, I told you if they feel like there's imminent risk, then they can remove the child right away. The department shall permit an individual that is selected by the membership of the Foster Care Association to be educated concerning the procedures relevant to the investigation of the alleged abuse and neglect by the department and the rights of the accused foster parents. Every region in our state has an advocate, and your advocate can be part of that. They're not a part of the investigative team, but they can always be there for you to advocate for your legal rights during an investigation. We are also the timekeepers. They have 60 days to complete an investigation if it stays internal. If there is an outside agency such as law enforcement, we can't really mandate what their timelines are like, but if it stays internal, they have 60 days to actually do the investigation and 60 days to do the paperwork. We just don't want people walking on eggshells for any longer than they have to. So your advocate is also your timekeeper. They're also going to make sure that you are treated with tenant one again, trust, dignity, and respect throughout the investigation, because it's very, very hurtful. You know, here we give everything we can for these kids. We do everything we can, and then somebody tells a story or somebody makes up an allegation. It's really hurtful, but it's all about child safety. I know people look at me when I say this. I've been there. I've had an allegation in my home. I cannot. People used to tell me all the time, it's going to make you a better advocate. I don't want to be a better advocate if it means this kind of pain. So I feel your pain. I know what it's like to be accused of something that you didn't do. But it's the process, and child safety first. It's all about child safety. I can tell you that a very, 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 very large percentage of the foster parent allegations come back AUPU. That means the allegation was unsubstantiated, the perpetrator was unsubstantiated, then it's over. You know, but it has to happen. And it says here that that person that can receive training, that's your advocate, shall be permitted to serve as the advocate for the accused foster parents. Such advocates shall be permitted to be present at all portions of the investigation where the accused foster parents are present, and all communication received by that advocate shall be strictly confidential. So you need to trust your advocate. They are there to support you and help you, not there to hurt you. They're not going to share any kind of confidential information to anybody else. So you have the right. I encourage everybody. It's not an admission of guilt when you say, nope, I don't want to talk to you until my advocate's present. You have that legal right to do that. It doesn't mean that you're guilty of anything. It just means you know what your rights are. Tenant training is represented in tenets 4 and 19. Tenet 4 says that the training to increase your skills and meet the special needs of a child. I tell people all the time that the best place to get your training is at our state conference. You can get all your hours and network with all the foster parents and have a weekend away from your kids and get all your hours in one weekend. I strongly, strongly encourage everybody to participate in your state conference. You can also get it by books and videos. You can get it by your local association. They a lot of times have speakers there. I know I speak at a lot of associations just giving a Bill of Rights training. So you can get some training hours by joining your local association, by going to your state conference, by reading books and videos. There's a lot of ways. There's no reason for anybody to not get their training hours in. And I love Tenet 19. Tenet 19, I fought for this one. I really like this one. The department shall provide the foster parents the training for obtaining support and information concerning a better understanding of your rights and the responsibilities. What it is that you have a legal right to have me telling you what your rights are. How about that? You have a right to be taught, trained, educated on what your legal rights are. And then when you feel like there's been a violation, first of all, you contact your advocate. Your advocate can then contact DCS, set up. We start at the lowest level. We start with your FSW, try to resolve any issues. And if we can't get anything there, then you reach out to the team leader for assistance. Every region has their different protocol for following grievances, but they're basically all the same thing. It's if you've just done everything that you can do and you still haven't reached resolution, then it can go outside the department to the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth to reach some resolution. I can tell you I've been a foster parent since day one. A foster parent advocate since day one, and I've never had to go to Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth. We've always been able to reach resolution, probably at the second level, with meeting with the team leader or team coordinator. You can do that. But there are protocols set in place to where when you can't do that, you can't go outside the department. And all the rest of it just talks about the procedures following grievances, but the meeting must take place within 7 days, and The results of that meeting should be in writing within 2 days, and it has to go to the chain coordinator. Just follow the chain of command. Thank you so much.